made it to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 331 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host Luke Millette, and here's your host Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Brad Watts, and if you want to hear how chiropractic fits into functional medicine, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am really, can I add another one? Really excited to have Dr. Brad Watts on with us today. This is episode 331 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Before we get rolling, I'm just setting down some ground rules of why we do what we do. The big why is we protect free speech in chiropractic. We support innate intelligence and subluxation-based chiropractic, and the sacred trust. We protect the sacred trust with our message of keeping free speech in chiropractic. And with that being said, welcome to the show, Dr. Brad.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in the message that we talked about last time when you were on the show. And I just kind of want to go a little bit deeper in a layer of who you are. We talked a lot about the why behind what you do on our last interview, but let's talk a lot about you. And one of my favorite things that we do on our show, and a lot of our listeners have told us that their favorite segments, the first couple minutes, is hearing the chiropractic stories about why you became a chiropractor. And I know that probably you have in your head what you do as a chiropractor and how you got into it. And people you might know have a variation of that, but a lot of us have a different message in our head than what people know about us. So your patients will hear this, your colleagues will hear this, your family will hear this, and I think it's a really cool, proud story. So if you could share with us, how did you get into the beautiful profession of chiropractic, and maybe share your story with our audience today?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, by the way, because not a lot of people get to hear this part. So this is cool. So I originally got involved in this idea of healthcare first before chiropractic. And it's because I have a grandfather that passed away at 57 years old with massive heart attack, right? And he had little grandkids. He still had a teenager at home and like destroyed everybody's world. Okay. And I'm a little kid growing up in that, and I see how it destroyed everybody's world. And so you pack that in there somewhere as a little kid, and you're like, heart attack. All right, heart attack. What is this all about? How do you avoid a heart attack? Because you don't want to see yourself go through that pain again, or the people around you. You don't want to have to see them live through that again. And part of that process grows in you as you're growing up, kind of like a seed. Right? So that gets deposited in there. And along the way, you begin to learn how to water that seed here and there. So you get into fitness, or you get into sports, or you get into food and nutrition, that type of thing. And so I knew that I wanted to be a doctor in healthcare, but I didn't know where. And so when I was growing up, we had a family chiropractor where I would go and see this chiropractor on about a weekly basis. And he changed our viewpoint of healthcare drastically. Like, I can't tell you the names of my doctors growing up, like the medical providers, but I can tell you stories about this guy. Okay. And he is a legend, and he recently retired, and he might be watching this even, and he's a legend, and he knows who he is. Okay. And so anyway, he made this massive impact on my family, where not only when you have aches and pains, where do you go? Right. But this other thing called wellness, or this innate intelligence idea, where it can start to express itself with vibrancy and life. And there's like a vitality that is uncommon. And that uncommon vitality is what hooked me. And so I found myself in chiropractic school. Right. Not with the idea of I want to be, working in a, PI clinic or something like that, because I didn't have any desire to do that. But what I did want to do is I wanted to find out, what does natural healthcare have to say about the heart attack situation? What does natural healthcare have to say about chronic disease? And I remember being a T7 or a T8, somewhere in there, as you're getting close to finishing chiropractic college, and you're in your last couple of trimesters. I remember sitting there and just looking at the options of what you can do when you're done, when you want to graduate and move on. And I remember I said it out loud to my roommates one day. I said, I can't have a neck and back clinic only for the rest of my career. I have this thing inside of me that wants to figure out how the edges of a cut heal together and what you can do to facilitate that, not just for a cut, but like we talked about last time with chronic disease, maybe diabetes or autoimmunity, etc. And that is what inspired me to get into something called functional medicine and nutrition. So we're looking at clinical nutrition and labs, and how do we look at somebody on the inside and start to work with that innate intelligence rather than keeping it chained up in the basement all the time? How do we allow it to express itself? Right? How can we customize a lifestyle for somebody that works with that innate intelligence to actually do what the body's designed to do, and that's heal? And so that's where we are, and that's what I've been working with Biogenetics on, and it's been fun. It's been an interesting journey. A lot of battles along the way, as you can imagine, being in the vanguard of different technologies and et cetera. But it has been the journey of a lifetime, that's for sure. So,
Well, maybe you could take a bit of a deeper dive into what biogenetics is. Like, is it for
yeah.
any ordinary people who just want to sign up and improve their health, or is it only for specific people? How do they get started?
You have a good question. So Biogenetics is a professional nutraceutical company, which means that you can only buy Biogenetics products through the professionals that are licensed in order to carry them, right? So your chiropractors, MDs, DCs, DOs, etc. But when we look at what Biogenetics does, we exist essentially to make health and healing an easy process for natural healthcare providers, right? Whether it be the education content that we bring them that shows them the how-to, whether it be the formulations that we put together, and the formulations actually change the laboratory data, which is the cool part. And and it's all part of that process of making sure that those natural healthcare providers are the actual heroes in their community. That's why Biogenetics exists. So period, that's it right there.
Well, let's pretend I was only interested in getting biogenetics products and I didn't have a doctor or a chiropractor. Is there like a website where I could search for
Yeah.
clinics that do carry your products?
Yep. So if you go to biogenetics.com and you email in to the support there, right? They'll plug you in with somebody in your community that has biogenetics offerings for you and can basically deploy the style of healthcare that we teach people.
I think that that's a really good point to turn into, and a hard right into decoded the functional medicine construct a bit. So people that
Sure.
have zero idea what a functional medicine practitioner does, because just because you and I think that that's something that is in our vernacular and
Yeah.
in our communication style, what we talk about, a lot of people are just like, I don't know what that guy just said. What is functional medicine?
Right.
And we even segment it down to calling it funk med.
Right.
And when you think about it, how does chiropractic fit into that model also? So I think that those are
Yeah.
important things, not only for the professional side of the conversation, but for the person that is unaware of what we're talking about.
Yeah, so chiropractic is very practical. It's in the name itself, right? And that practical nature of it means I want to find the root cause of whatever is causing your issue. So if you got back pain, I don't just want to give you an Advil and then slap you on the back and send you out. I want to figure out why that's there. Is it a mechanical issue? Is it an anatomical issue at this point? What is it? And the functional medicine is essentially chiropractic nutrition, right? That's how I would explain it, where we take that same idea of a diagnosis. Somebody gives you a diagnosis of something like migraines. Okay, there's a common one, migraines. Well, why do you have those? Right? Why? Is it something in your neck that is, not moving the right way? That's subluxation-based migraine? Well, we're going to find that out. What if it's not a subluxation-based migraine? What if it's a chemical-based migraine and you have no idea? So what we do in functional medicine is we want to keep asking why until we hit the root cause, and then we can handle that root cause no matter what it might be, right? As long as it fits under that conservative care scope, right? Which is chiropractic. So for instance, we have, Jim, we got people that come in, to a clinic, and let's say they have diabetes, neuropathy, they have numbness and tingling in their hands or their feet, something like that. We want to know why it's there. Is it there because they have a toxicity of something in their water at home and they don't know? Is it there because they have a toxicity of, I should say calories, right? Like a diabetes patient, oftentimes you would look at it through that lens. Okay. And we want to find out, what is the toxicity? Can you mitigate the situation by changing a lifestyle? And for the most part, yes, we use laboratory testing to find out what's actually causing the issue. So blood, saliva, stool testing, sometimes urine samples, that type of thing. And we get down into the granular detail and we find that what's the contributing factor, what is actually driving the patient's condition, is most oftentimes, in the case of chronic disease, especially in the United States, most oftentimes it's a choice. Most oftentimes. So in functional medicine, we would teach you how to make different choices that would allow your body's ability to heal, to the same way that if you were healing the edges of a cut together, well, you could do the same thing with neuropathy if you figure out what's causing the neuropathy. Okay.
So what you're saying is this is the ultimate biohack. Like,
Yeah.
I know that biohacking is a huge industry right now.
Right.
And this is the ultimate, like, old school model of biohacking is get to know the blueprint of the blood, get to know the blueprint of the functionality, the dysregulation, the dysfunction, and see
Mhm.
how we can start to repair that stuff and control it and sample it and test it and say, not only are we going to adjust and correct this vertebral subluxation
Mhm.
that strips the body of its power and its flow, but we're also going to look at this other aspect of how your body actually heals and repairs.
That's right. And there's this amazing feature that's inborn in you, right? And it's like the dial set for 120. And so your brain will do everything it can to adapt to get to that 120 years. And it's amazing, right? It's amazing at what your body is able to overcome if you can work with that setting, right? That says, hey, I'm going to choose longevity versus comfort. When people start choosing comfort, chronic disease shows up, and it's not always like on purpose, right? You can't really control the air, the air quality in the city that you live in, unless you move out to the hills like you did, right? But the point is that there is a choice somewhere in there. There's a choice that you can work with that inborn longevity that's in there, right? And I think it's important for people to realize that they do have a choice. And I feel like also, if we learned anything over the last 2 years, it's that you really do have a choice.
Amen. Amen. And then you think about this as, if what you're doing is, I kind of look at it as you're going out there and people come see you as a prospective client or patient,
Mhm.
and they're like, Doc, can you help me put the fire out?
Right.
And you have to determine where the fire's at,
Mhm.
and you have to think of the best way to mitigate smoke and burn and all this stuff, but it's an internal thing. And if you looked at most of these people, you wouldn't be able to tell that anything's really wrong with them unless you started to discover where their fire is.
Yeah. So the trained eye, well, let's back up because that's a really good word picture. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So when you look at chiropractic in general, there's two different styles, I think, and you have the triage care and then you have the wellness care, right? Or like longevity care that I call it. Triage care, somebody comes to you and they got a hot L5 disc or whatever, and they're like, hey, my back is on fire. I literally cannot go to work. I can't sit in a chair. The only thing I can do is lay on my back, right, with my legs up. That's all. Okay. That person needs somebody to help facilitate some wellness there, right? But how do they get into that spot in the first place? That's the question, right? So when you talk about having a fire, in healthcare, most people don't do anything about their health until the house is on fire, right? Until they have a heart attack, or they get diagnosed with a chronic disease,
Or the car
or
crash.
exactly, or there's something that is wrecking their ability to participate with their kids or their grandkids. Most people are unwilling to do anything until they're in that spot where it starts to hurt socially or otherwise. And in functional medicine, certainly it's not, unique to functional medicine. I would say it's unique to chiropractic and holistic healthcare in general. But in functional medicine, I don't want to wait till the house is on fire. Why don't you, if there's a fire in there, you probably want to see it while the stove's on fire, right? Go put it out while it's isolated. And that's what we do with labs is we'll look and basically look at all of our major organ systems. We'll go through the hormone testing, and we put patients through a battery of tests, not just, once the house is on fire. We want to put them through the test so that we can hopefully, right, do what all healthcare providers should be doing, and that is working the prevention side of things rather than just the triage. So
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Prime Spine Consulting. Let's hustle.
So, what kind of things are you doing for your own health as well as your family's health? And are you on Biogenetics? Do you take the supplements?
Yep. So Biogenetics products are very targeted. Okay. So you would use them if your labs describe a need for them. That's all. Right. So they're very targeted, and we use them as tools. Okay. So if I'm not a carpenter, I don't need a hammer. Right. If I'm driving for UPS, I don't need a table saw. Right. So the tools are applied to the specific scenario. So for myself, it comes down to the 3 tenets of chiropractic, right? Eat well, live well, eat well, move well. Okay. And what happens is you end up living well. Okay. So thinking well, eating well, moving well, living well, you get this paradigm shift. And part of that is making sure that you're eating food that's compatible with health and healing rather than eating food that's compatible with chronic disease. Breathing air, same thing. Having movement and activity, exercise programming that we just talked about. Like if you're a healthcare provider and you want to listen to information like this, we just talked about this on an episode of Casual Friday at Biogenetics that we do every Friday. And we talked about how to problem solve weight loss programming and why most people get sabotaged. Okay. This is a really interesting area that you can fix with light therapy like lasers, and you can also fix with some specific exercise strategies that trick these inborn mechanisms that you have that cause you to retain body fat, right? So we go through that, and problem solving everybody's New Year's resolutions is essentially what we were talking about this last week. And part of that is making sure that your exercise and your food, right, and your thinking line up in the same direction, and they're not competing interests, right? So you ask, what do you do for yourself? That exactly. I got 3 little kids. And I mean, my goal, they're going to be the healthiest 3 little kids you ever walked around, that you ever see walk around. And the reason is because I want their full vitality to be expressed in them, their full life. I want you to look in their eyes and for you to be like, oh my goodness, I see it. Right. I want you to feel that. And so eat well, think well, move well, be well is essentially where you want to land. And that's what we teach through Biogenetics. That's what we teach people to do, just to customize a lifestyle for yourself. Right. So making sure that you are doing what you can to live that chiropractic paradigm.
So to angle back into this question, so the objective, if somebody has the fire in them and they're unable to do what they want to, the systems are restorative and they help get somebody back to full functionality and mobility to whatever the limitations of matter are within that person.
That's right.
And that's the principles of chiropractic is, sometimes people come in with too much of a fire in them and they've been, you know, the situation's been so far gone. You can only do so much to restore people back. So, what is the idea when somebody is like real chronic? Are you able to use these systems and strategies and the programs to get people that have some type of entrenched chronic stuff taken care of too?
Yeah, it's stunning, right? So in the last decade, I've looked at over 25,000 cases in the functional medicine space to be able to analyze the laboratory work and take into context, their case histories, and to put a plan together to help doctors point their patients in the right direction. That's what we do at Biogenetics as a free service, by the way.
So cool.
And what happens is these people get a glimmer of hope, because there's no hope in the chronic disease world in modern medicine right now, right? It's you just sit and wait until you get a condition, you take a med, and you sit and wait until you get another condition, and you take the med. And the meds are not designed to reverse the condition. The meds are designed to manage a condition. Okay. So this is the key difference between functional medicine and being a mainstream medical provider, is this right here. We don't want to manage anybody's conditions. We just don't want you to have them. Right. Like, is the manager of your local Burger King trying to kill the business? No, he's trying to perpetuate the business. And so if you get in the business of managing chronic diseases, you're not trying to get rid of your customer list. Right. And that's a key difference. And I call it being a doctor of cause. You want to be a doctor of cause, not a doctor that churns, right? And that's just the difference that we call it there. So anyway, pretty interesting, I think, when you look at the concepts.
So, how do you see the profession of chiropractic changing or developing over the next 20 years?
So the credibility of the other side of the table has taken a massive bludgeoning over the last 2.5 years. And the chiropractors that didn't bow the knee to everybody's wishes to keep your mouth shut about what was going on over the last 2 years, how the immune system works, how the body works, those chiropractors have a platform now for, really for leadership to show up, not only in their community, but also in their profession. And so what I see over the next, couple of years here for chiropractic is really moving from a, 10% of the population last resort, I got low back pain scenario, to, hey, these people look healthy. Okay. These people apparently are doing well for themselves from a health perspective, right? What else do they know? Okay. And that's really a spot for chiropractors, in my opinion, to be able to bring the full scope of your licensure into the marketplace again, like it was with DD Palmer, like it was right back in the day here, where you can talk about nutrition, you can talk about mindset, you can talk about mechanics, not just, hey, really, we got to focus on what's going on with your L5 only. Okay. Because L5 is also talking to your brain, which is also being fed by the food that you put in your body. And so we get this full scope of chiropractic. I think that's coming back again because the marketplace is demanding it.
You know, Doc, I've thought that chiropractic was ahead of the curve for many years now. As I was telling you before we jumped onto the interview today, I was telling you how I matriculated into doing this to this to this to
Yeah.
this. And I saw where there was a need for this and a need for that. And I still think that there's a lot of service that has to evolve from a PR perspective.
Mhm.
And yeah, you are right. Eventually people are going to be looking around. They're like, how are all how are those people so damn healthy, and why do they look so fit and active? And that's going to be like
And happy.
well, that's going to be the other aspect of the other people are the canary in the coal mine. This is what happens when you don't do it the right way. And look at this other populace of people that are limping around and foggy and don't feel good. And that's the crux that we're at, and that's where we're headed. Is people are gonna it's gonna be so simply aware that we're gonna see it. It's gonna be like night and day. Like you'll see people with vitality and vitalism, like you're talking about, looking into the eyes of your kids.
Yeah.
But you're also going to see that from a group of people that are out enjoying life and not afraid of things.
100%. Right now, you see, like yesterday, if I can say this, the director of the CDC came out and said that, hey, by the way, 70% of the people that passed away over the last 2 years with, the condition had 4 comorbidities.
Mm.
4, right? Whether it be heart disease or diabetes or autoimmunity or whatever. 4 comorbidities, the average person, right? That's unbelievable. Okay. And if I have to like say anything about chiropractic where we can do better, it's that,
Mm.
right? It's 4 comorbidities, and that's the majority of the people that have been taken out over the last 2.5 years. That is simply space where we can improve in our education and messaging to our patient bases.
So let me ask you a direct question then.
Sure.
Can the system of care that you do, because chiropractic's been bundled into healthcare,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And I've said on the show hundreds and hundreds of times that chiropractic is the care of health system. It's not a healthcare model. Healthcare model has been bought and sold by big pharma, and care of
Mhm.
health is something that's yet to be discovered, and that's what chiropractors are delivering.
Mhm.
Comorbidities, you say that.
Mhm.
Does your system help identify these comorbidities
Yeah.
and that's the biggest, that's the biggest elephant in the room. If people are passing, 70% have 4 of these things.
Yeah.
How do we tell if you have one of these things? And how
So
do
here's
we
the
regulate
secret.
and manage that?
Here's the secret. They already knew, right? So remember this, that science only knows what it gets paid to know. Okay. Science only knows what it gets paid to know. And so what you have are these people in a hospital setting passing away with a condition that everybody already knew after the first 3 months was taking out the people that had these comorbidities. So instead of protecting that population, right, we try to shut everything down, and we end up in a position where now for a lot of people in a lot of different states, you couldn't even go get your low back pain treated because the doctor was told to stay home. Okay. So the point is that people know they have these comorbidities, and what they need to know is that their diagnosis should be a gateway, a doorway. It shouldn't be the stop. Like once you get diagnosed with a condition, oh, you have heart disease, or oh, you have diabetes. That shouldn't be a shut the door. Oh, I got the diabetes, and well, I guess that's what I'm relegated to the rest of my life. That really should be an exploration jump off point right there. That doorway should open at your diagnosis, and you should say, hey, why? Why do I have these conditions? Because if you can find out why, you can probably do something about it. Like if you have low back pain because there's a rock in your shoe, you don't just take an Advil, you have to find out why. And if somebody goes, hey, there's a rock in your shoe, are you going to continue to take the medication like that's going to solve your problem? No, because the exploration into the reason, the same way that the exploration into the reason for these comorbidities necessitates people doing something about it, because otherwise they're not going to be able to live in, congruency, so to speak. Right? Once you know what problem is, right, you can't avoid doing something about that problem anymore.
So we're starting to come up on the edge of our time together today, but maybe
Sure.
you could send us off with maybe a miracle story or two, either chiropractic or biogenetics related.
Yeah.
Whatever comes to your mind first. Whenever we say miracle story, someone always
Sure.
has one right off the top of their head.
All right, that's great. So I think of a little kid who was in Colorado, no less, you guys. All right, a little kid who's in Colorado, and the doctor sent his case into Biogenetics, right, which is a free service that we offer at Biogenetics. And we did a case workup on the kid, and doctor deployed it. So here's the kid's scenario, right? You get a little kid who's 9 years old. He's ADD, ADHD. Doctors are trying to load him up on medicine, etc. The kid's in school, is labeled a troublemaker, gets booted out of school a few times, and the basically the teacher is like, don't send your kid back until you medicate him enough. Okay, medicate him enough. And so the kid, parents send in the laboratory work and all the stuff, and turns out the kid is allergic to food that he's been eating. And it also turns out that he has a large amount of something called mycotoxins in his environment. Mycotoxins are mold toxins, mold from water damaged buildings. Okay. And, you live in an old house, or you go to an old school, and those walls are just radiating mycotoxins out into your environment. And this little kid was super sensitive to them. So they created a hyperactivity scenario in his brain, and he can't sit there and focus, literally can't do anything. So what we did is we went through a process with the healthcare provider that was treating him to put together a detox that was gentle enough for a little kid, but effective enough to help move him in the right direction. And 6 weeks go by, and the teacher tells the mother, "Thank you for medicating your child." And the mother, sends us a letter back that says, "Hey, we just want you to know that kid's back in school. He's doing well. He hasn't gotten suspended, right, in 6 weeks." Yeah, stuff like that makes a difference for people. People that are saving their feet from amputation, people that are, saving their fingers and toes from amputation, people that have had cognitive decline because they have Alzheimer's disease, and seeing some rehabilitation show up based off some of the work at UCLA that's going on. Just teaching doctors how to provide, support to their patients where they need it, because nobody else is willing to stand in that gap except for these natural healthcare providers, and it's amazing. So kudos to them.
Well, you're definitely, the theme of this is putting the fire out.
Mm.
And I believe that you've learned how to put the fire out and the people that you get a chance to take care of. And if people don't know, like, the bigger idea of that is it's inflammation. And a lot of these things that are showing up into your studies and the way you take care of people are based on basically getting the inflammation to go down or go away. And that's why the kid starts chilling out. That's why people's feet start to recover and restore, and people's limbs start to recover and to restore, and people's organs start to recover and to restore. And that's the real fascinating thing about this show that we do, is it uncovers stories like yours and instances of one person's desire to become a chiropractor because of one thing that they saw when they were little, and how it can go on to have the big idea, the life effect on people. And that's really the beauty of what we do and how it produces, and the audience it's for is it's chiropractic stories. And we're so thankful that you came on today to share your chiropractic story on episode 331 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. In closing, though, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to discuss before we call it a day with you?
Yeah, there are one thing I'll leave you with, right? And you guys get some awesome guests on here. Like we were talking about Dr. Mancini and some of the other guests you guys have had on here. And I appreciate the messages that you guys are putting out into the marketplace. It's pretty amazing. So one of the things that we like to do in healthcare as a chiropractor is find innate intelligence in somebody else and pull it out of them, let it do what it's supposed to do. And you're really doing that with an entire industry. And I just want you to know that. So keep doing what you're doing.
Well, we're very, very grateful to be the megaphones of the beautiful profession of chiropractic, and to connect the dots, if you will, and to bring the great personalities on, because that's really what it takes. It takes stories that are more consistent than anyone else in the marketplace to keep on telling the story. And if I learned anything on my early development in chiropractic, all the old boys would say, "Tell the story, tell the story, tell the story." So it just kind of titration hit me, and eventually I was like, "Look, we just need to tell this story."
Yeah, well, keep doing it. So keep doing it.
So the website is biogenetics.com. I'm
That's
guessing there's a Facebook page, an Instagram page, all that.
That's right. And if you want a direct email, it's ZEB at biogenetics.com. If you're interested in a case review service, it's a free service that Biogenetics offers. He can get you plugged in.
Awesome.
Dr. Brad, it's been real, man. Thank you so much for being our guest.
All right. Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Talk to you very soon. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.